Hello, listeners. I'm just reminding you again at the beginning of this episode that I'm doing a stand-up comedy show on the 19th of July 2024 in Paris. Okay? You know Paris? You've heard of Paris? You have. Do you live in Paris or near Paris? If you do, then why not come to the show? It's going to be fun. It's a two-man show with my friend Charles Pellegrin. I'll be doing half an hour. Charles will be doing half an hour. Come and join us. Have a good laugh. It's going to be 100% in English. Here are the details. The show is called Luke and Charles, Same Difference, at the French Fried Comedy Night, 8:30 p.m. I wouldn't do a stand-up comedy show at 8:30 in the morning. That would be awful. You'd be like, oh, good morning, everyone. Oh. Anyway, 8:30 p.m. on the 19th of July, 2024. The venue is called Au Soleil de la Butte, which is how I pronounce it in my terrible English accent when I speak French. Au Soleil de la Butte. The address, 32 Rue Muller in the 18th arrondissement of Paris. Entry is free. Please buy a drink when you arrive in order to make sure that the owners aren't too grumpy with us at the end of the evening. That would make them very happy. Buy a drink or two. You can get food there as well. Reserving tickets is not possible yet because the show isn't listed on Eventbrite. But just come along, right? Just come along. After the stand-up show, I'm hoping to record a podcast in the room on stage as well. So that would be great. You could be in the audience for that as well. So come, enjoy the show. Let us entertain you. Have a drink afterwards. Say hi. Hang out for a bit. 19th of July, 2024, 8:30 p.m. Au Soleil de la Butte in the 18th arrondissement of Paris. All the details of that show are available at teacherluke.co.uk/comedy. Now, let's start this episode and let's go back in time to a few days ago, in fact, when I had a beard. Here we go. Beard vision now engaged. Hello listeners, hello video viewers. I'm doing another one of these walk and talk episodes today, and if you're listening to the audio version, you can probably hear all of the sounds of the city around me. I hope that's not going to be too distracting for you. Later on, I think I should be walking through a slightly quieter area, so it should be less noisy. But right now I'm standing near the Louvre Museum, just off Rue de Rivoli, and the plan is that I'm going to go and take a walk along the river just near here and then walk down towards Hotel de Ville in the centre of the city. Okay, and so this walk and talk episode is this is not a tour guide, right? This isn't me giving you a tour of the city, but what this is just basically a chance for me to record an episode outside. And the plan with these walk and talk episodes is that I have topics, right? If you remember the first one, I think I explained the general concept, which was that I would do a podcast outside, largely in an effort to avoid being too sedentary in my office. It's not healthy to spend all day sitting down, which is what I do when I'm podcasting normally. I'm normally sitting down, and that's not the healthiest way to do things. So anyway, I'm going to walk around and talk to you about a specific topic, okay? It's not a tour of Paris. I'm not going to be giving you historical information about the things, but essentially, if you're watching the video version, it should just provide you with perhaps some nice visuals as we go along, all right? You can see I've got the camera attached to my chest here. I'm attempting to do this with this. I've got like a kind of necklace thing, and the camera is attached with a magnet. Hopefully that won't be too wobbly. We'll see. I mean, it's another experiment, let's say. I mean, I'm just kind of like trying this out. The topic that I'm going to talk about is health and diet. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to walk through here in the direction of the Louvre. And then from there, I'm going to walk over to the river, and then we'll walk along the river, and I'll talk to you about health and diet, right? That's the topic. Health, physical health, mental health, and diet, right? Obviously the food that we eat, the things we drink. Okay, now what I've got in my hand is a worksheet which I prepared, I think a couple of months ago for a class that I was teaching. Let's put these headphones on. What's the best way to get through here? Probably to go through this spot here into, this area is actually called Palais Royal. A very picturesque area, of course, always worth a visit. Palais Royal is just to the east of the Louvre. This square here, this kind of gallery area, a real hotspot for tourists. They've got these interesting kind of stripy columns and these galleries that go around with all these columns that come down. Looks like there's a school trip happening here today with lots of kids with their orange high visibility jacket things on. So anyway, so I was talking about the worksheet. So for lessons, sometimes I'll just prepare different materials. But someone's getting married, it seems. Did you see that? It's like a girl in a wedding dress and a guy in a suit over there. So I'll prepare different worksheets. Often if I'm teaching a lesson on a particular topic, like I think the lesson for this one obviously was health and diet. And I probably had some material from a course book or something, but I needed more stuff. I think that's what happened. And so I just created, I wanted a discussion activity with speaking exercises. And so I created this set of questions, but then I thought it would be quite good to include some interesting and useful vocabulary in my questions too, to help my students learn this stuff. And I came up with some phrasal verbs. Where am I going? I feel like I've already got lost. I'm trying to find the Louvre. I thought I knew where I was going. I get lost so easily. I'm not one of these people who has this kind of Google Maps inbuilt in the brain. It's not that I lose my sense of direction. It's just that I assume one thing is next to another thing, and then I get it wrong, and then I take a wrong turn, and then I realise that actually I've got no idea where I'm going. Maybe that's what's happening here. Where am I? Oh God, a dead pigeon. Ugh, dead pigeon on the floor. We don't want to see that. Ugh, yuck. Life in the big bad city, where not only do you find beautiful monuments, but dead pigeons on the floor that have been half eaten by rats. The reality of life in Paris. Where's the flipping Louvre and where's the river gone? Okay, you see, I'm not a tour guide, right? Absolutely not. If you're looking for someone to give you all the expert information about, you see, I'm heading in utterly the wrong direction. I was just wandering aimlessly in the wrong direction there. So I'm now heading back in the right direction. Okay, I need to take a sort of, I need to go southeast from here. Is it southeast? Basically, I just need to go south. All right. So anyway, basically, I came up with this set of questions. And the questions contain phrasal verbs. right? The topic is health and diet. So while I'm walking along, I'll try to answer these questions. And what you can do is just listen to me ramble, of course, first of all, but also I want you to try to notice vocabulary, and specifically the vocab here is some phrasal verbs. Right, now you know what phrasal verbs are, I suppose. These are verbs which are made of several words, okay? That's what a phrase is in English. It's like a set of several words that go together. Could be a noun phrase, right? For example, the Louvre Museum, that's a noun phrase. It's more than one word, but the whole thing is a noun. A phrasal verb is more than one word. It's a verb normally with what they call a particle, usually a preposition, so a verb and a preposition, but it functions as a single meaningful unit. Hello, I've just paused the episode here because at this point the background noise gets very loud. As well as the traffic around me, I was walking past a building site, and it sounded like they were smashing the building to pieces rather than actually building it. I've no idea what they were doing, but it was incredibly loud, so I'm going to remove the audio from the next 2 minutes of the episode, and I'm going to replace it with this voiceover that I'm doing now. These walk and talk episodes are really good fun, and it's nice to get out and about in the city to do these things. There are interesting things to see and to talk about, and it makes a nice change. But yes, the downside is that the background noise can be a bit too loud sometimes. Some noise is okay because it makes things immersive, right? It kind of makes the experience, the listening experience, more immersive. But I understand that it might be a bit too much sometimes, and I apologise for that. I think that some people, some listeners, are more sensitive to these atmospheric sounds than others. Most people, I think, are fine with it. Some people find it a bit disorientating. Unfortunately, there isn't much I can do about it. I've tried using software to remove background noise from these recordings, but it doesn't actually remove the really problematic sounds. It doesn't remove the bad sounds, like the sirens, the crashing sounds from things being moved or dropped on building sites, loud engines from vans and buses and things. It doesn't really remove those sounds, those big sudden noises. It only removes the more atmospheric sounds, which are actually not the problem, like birds singing in the background, the breeze rustling the leaves of trees, the sound of passing bicycles. That's the sort of thing that gets removed by software that claims to remove background noise. It removes the nice sounds, but then the large, sudden crashing sounds are still included, especially when I'm speaking. And let's be honest, I'm doing that most of the time. So I do apologise for any moments when the sound gets too loud. If you are a resident of Paris, I mean, what can we do about this? Maybe just, next time I'm out and about recording a podcast, just try to keep the noise down, okay? I'm trying to do a podcast here, everyone, all right? Anyway, I've removed the audio from the next couple of minutes, but let me explain what I was saying during this section. I was talking about phrasal verbs, and I was saying this, basically. So, the tricky thing is that these phrasal verbs are often idiomatic in their meaning. That's one of the tricky things. There's also the structure, which is something I'll talk about in the premium episode I'm going to do about the phrasal verbs in this episode. Anyway, one of the tricky things is that these phrasal verbs are often idiomatic in their meaning, which means the phrases are not always clear to you if you just look at the individual words. And I'm going to give an example with the phrase to give up, to give something up, to give up smoking. I'll give an example of that. So the whole phrase often has a completely different meaning to the words on their own, like give up. For example, the phrase give up, meaning to stop doing something or to stop a certain habit, like to give up smoking, right? To quit a bad habit. It's an idiomatic phrasal verb. The word give on its own, we know what this means, like, for example, to give someone a gift. The word up, we know what this is, up and down, right? But give up is completely different. It means to stop a habit. It's got nothing to do with giving something to someone. It's nothing to do with things going up in the air or something like that. It means to quit, right? To give up smoking. So that's a tricky thing. But phrasal verbs are really useful vocabulary. They're very common. They're extremely natural. It's exactly the sort of language people use every day. It's informal to neutral, everyday English. They are used in work situations. It's just normal spoken English. Phrasal verbs are very high frequency. They get used a lot. So if you want to learn this language, if you want to understand people, and if you want to be understood by people and to speak English the way it's actually spoken, you've got to learn a few phrasal verbs, okay? All right, so let's get back to the original recording. I've walked past that noisy building site. Let's continue. So, as I said, I'll ramble on about the topic. See if you can notice vocab and phrasal verbs while I'm doing it. I'll give you a little summary at the end of the phrasal verbs that I've used. But yeah, see if you can notice them. I'll do a premium episode, that's it. I'm going to do a premium episode where I go into all the details and explain each phrasal verb that you're going to hear properly with proper definitions, examples, and all the rest of it, okay? But in this one, the main focus is, can you try and notice phrasal verbs as I'm using them? So I'm in the Louvre now. I mean, I'm not actually inside. I'm outside, above ground. But the buildings all around me, these very spectacular, impressive looking buildings. This is the Louvre. It's massive. I visited this place with Amber and Paul on the podcast a couple of years ago. It was an audio-only episode, but there is a video version with lots of images, photographs of the things that we were talking about. Yes, it's a wonderful place, very spectacular. You know, started out, I think, as a kind of castle by the river, and over time got developed and developed and developed by different kings until it became this majestic looking huge building, which is now one of the most famous museums in the world, containing you know, some priceless artifacts, including the Mona Lisa, of course. Now, am I still going the right way? There's a certain place that I'm trying to get to. Right, I need to take a right up here. Okay, all right, so I got to the river. Okay, I was going to go to the Pyramid du Louvre, you know, the big glass pyramid, but I've kind of skipped it. But that's all right, this is actually where I was heading for anyway. Listeners, I've just arrived in front of the river. There's a bridge in front of me. At the other end of the bridge there is another magnificent building with a domed roof. That is the Académie Française, I think. Pretty sure that's the Académie Française, which is like a kind of, that's where actually there's a group of academics that are based there, and their job is to protect the French language probably from the influence of the English language, for example. They actually protect the French language. They set the rules of the French language, spelling, grammar, and so on. But what I'm going to do here is try and get down onto the riverbank. Where can I do that? This is Pont des Arts. Right, that's the name of this bridge. And let's have a look at the river a little bit. It's a river, you know what that is. A big thing with loads of water in it. Over there in the distance there is the top of the Eiffel Tower. When the Olympic Games happens in a few weeks, the opening ceremony is supposed to take place here with river barges like the ones that are flowing down the river right now. And there should be river barges for each Olympic team with flags and all that stuff. Is it going to happen here? We're still not sure whether it's really going to happen on the river, whether they'll be ready, whether they will deem it to be safe, or whether they'll just move the whole ceremony to the Stade de France, the big stadium. But that remains to be seen. This bridge, Pont des Arts, the sides of the bridge are actually made of glass. The barriers are made of glass, but they used to be like kind of metal bars. And this bridge is famous for tourists coming with these padlocks, and they would attach the padlocks to the bridge as a way of expressing their love for each other, right? It's a kind of a romantic gesture that, you know, you'd come here with your girlfriend or boyfriend and you bring padlocks and you'd attach them to the railings of this bridge, and like hundreds, thousands of tourists kept coming here attaching these padlocks, and then they'd go away and go back to, you know, where they actually live after they'd spent their romantic, you know, week in Paris or whatever, leaving these fairly heavy padlocks attached to this bridge. And the entire bridge got completely covered in padlocks, and there were so many padlocks on the bridge that the bridge was in danger of collapsing and crashing into the water. Right, they'd added so much weight onto the bridge, it became it actually sort of damaged the structural integrity of the bridge. There's actually still a few padlocks attached in spots where it's possible to attach padlocks. People are still doing it. But yeah, they had to actually replace all the railings with these glass plates to stop people being romantic. It's like, that's it, that's all right, that's too, you're being too romantic now. It's possible to be too romantic in Paris, apparently. Who knew? Now, how can I get down there? Okay, there's a set of steps there. So I'm going to walk down the steps, walk under this bridge, and then walk in that direction towards Hotel de Ville, which is basically the sort of the headquarters of the mayor of Paris. All right, and that's where I'm probably going to stop. Actually, I have to be in a certain location at 10:30 because today is a day for recording things outside. Because today I'm going to meet up with my friends Amber and Paul, and we're going to do an outdoor recording. I say an outdoor recording. Actually, we're going to go to a museum. So like last time we went to the Louvre, this time we're going to go to a different museum. And Amber, who is a registered tour guide and knows loads of things about Paris and the different attractions and points of interest in this city, she's going to tell Paul and me about the things that we can see in this museum. So we're going to go to a museum called the Cluny Museum, which is a place that is full of medieval art. So Paul and I are going to learn about medieval art, and so are you, in fact. But the main thing is that you can just have fun walking around an interesting gallery with me and Amber and Paul. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do later this morning, and I have to be kind of over on the left bank of the river, which is about, I think, 20 minutes walk from here, roughly. I've got to be there in 35 minutes time. But in the meantime, let's walk along here and I will start answering these questions. The sun is shining kind of in my face. I wonder how that's going to affect the video quality, we'll see. But here it is. It's a pretty, pretty place. People travel from thousands of miles away to do what I'm doing right now. And I think since I live here, I have to appreciate this, appreciate the picturesque beauty of this place that I live in. One of the interesting things about Paris is that there are these islands in the river. And the one in front of me is, I think it's the Ile de la Cité, and that's where Notre Dame is located. And there's a point at the front of the island where there are trees. There's a lovely weeping willow, and you can sit under the willow with your feet over the edge and watch the boats coming past, and you can wave at the people on the boats. Why do we do this? I don't know. Why do we wave at people on boats? It's completely normal, isn't it? I mean, this is some of my stand-up material actually. If you just wave at someone in the street, right? They will look at you like you're a crazy person and they'll walk the other way. They'll escape from you. In fact, it's generally not normal. It's generally considered a bit strange to just wave at someone you don't know for no reason. Like, oh, hello! Like, oh my God, a weirdo. You know, that's generally true, right? Unless at least one of you is on a boat. And then, yeah, go for it, wave away. Why is that? What are we so impressed with boats? Like, look at me, I'm on the water. You are as well, look at you on the water. And you're floating. Oh, hello. Right? So only one of you, but if you're both on the same boat, you can't do it then, can you? Right? In fact, that's worse. If you're standing on the boat looking at the view, oh, it's nice here. You turn round, and over there on the other side of the boat, there's a guy, and he catches your eye, and then, hello, and he waves at you like that. You go, oh God, there's a nutter on the boat. Oh no, I can't escape, you know. So either one of you on the land and another one on the boat, and it's fine to wave. In fact, it's like great. Or one of you on a boat and the other person on another boat. Then go for it as well. Right? If you're on different boats, then definitely you can wave at each other. But if you're on the same boat, no way. And if you're just on the land, definitely not. There are other situations as well when this is, it seems that basically one of you's got to be on some sort of unusual transport system and the other one not. At least one of you's got to be on a form of unusual transport. Mass transport as well, I suppose. I mean, would it work if there was just one person on a kayak? Maybe. But certainly mass transport, one of you's got to be on mass transport, the other one's got to be either on the land or on another form of mass transport, then you could wave at each other and that's great. And this includes aeroplanes, I mean, if you actually have the time. But you know, it's not unusual to wave at a plane as it passes. Helicopters, sure. Hot air balloons, that's the other example, isn't it? If you're outside on a summer's day and you hear this noise, and you think, what's that? And you look up and there's a hot air balloon just there, up in the sky, and you think, wow, look at that fantastic hot air balloon. They're quite low and you can see people in the basket and you wave at them, hello, hi. But the problem is then, is that it can get awkward depending on how fast the hot air balloon is going. If the hot air balloon's not going very fast, if it's just basically hanging there, then it's going to be a bit awkward, isn't it? Hi, hi. And then sort of, oh, you're still here. Hello again. Yeah. Oh, and you're still here. Okay. Yeah. Okay, you can go now. You know. Anyway, these questions. Here are 20 questions related to the topic of health and diet that incorporate a variety of useful phrasal verbs. Question number 1. Do you exercise or work out in the gym to stay healthy? Do you exercise or work out in the gym to stay healthy? Do you exercise like a lot of the people on the river here? There's a lot of people running or jogging, if you like. There's other people cycling. Some people are here doing yoga, right? Other forms of exercise. What about you? What about me? Do I exercise or do other forms of, do I work out in the gym? No. No, I don't. Actually, sometimes, to be fair, sometimes I do go to the gym. So my wife and I recently got a sort of membership to a place where it's a sort of a no strings attached situation where we don't have to go to the gym like a certain number, we're not paying a monthly fee. We just pay as you go, sort of thing. And we go to this gym where we do boxing, pow, 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 right? It's not actual boxing, it's sort of like fake boxing, just for a bit of cardiovascular exercise, right? Just to do some cardio. And the way it works is you go into this dark room. Thankfully it's dark, so you don't feel too self-conscious. You go into a dark room and there are all these rubber balls suspended on chains. It's a bit weird, to be honest. There were these rubber balls suspended on chains from the ceiling. The balls are like filled with water, I think. So these are the punching bags. And they're attached by chains to the floor as well, so they don't move around too much. Anyway, and then there's a guy leading the session, and they play like sort of intense music, and the guy in French leads you through a series of kind of cardiovascular boxing exercises where he's like, okay, you've got to punch with the left and then punch with the right. Now punch with the right and punch with the left. Step to the side and punch, you know, all that sort of stuff. And it's about 45 minutes of basically jogging up and down. It makes you do press-ups and star jumps and squats and stuff. It's horrible. So, I mean, it's kind of fun punching the bag, to be fair. That's good fun. But after a while, you know, you're like out of breath, sweating profusely. It gets really uncomfortable. It's like, oh God, I can't do this anymore. Pam, 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 punching the bag. I mean, the punching the bag is the most fun part of it. If it didn't involve punching the bag, I think I would not be interested, you know, but since there's a bit of punching involved, I'm willing to do it. And afterwards, you feel absolutely fantastic, right? First of all, you feel incredibly uncomfortable and sweaty. You're just like, oh God, I can't move. I'm so sweaty and hot. Just everything is sticky. But then once you've cooled down, you do feel great. You get all those endorphins, right? Which is like something that happens in your brain. Boom, it's sort of like your brain rewards you for doing the exercise with some sort of wonderful chemical, like a drug, a natural high, which is, you know, what people love to get from doing exercise. I guess that's why a lot of people go running in the morning, right? Not just to keep fit, not just to try to stay healthy, but also because it puts you in a good mood for the rest of the day. So we go to the gym occasionally, but most of the time, to be fair, I don't. And I don't work out. I think working out? Yeah, okay, I was wondering if working out only refers to bodybuilding or muscle work, but it doesn't. Working out can mean cardiovascular work or muscular work, right? When I say cardiovascular, I mean the sort of exercise that is good for your heart and your vascular system. That's your arteries, veins, capillaries, the things that are responsible for the flow of blood around your body. Also, I suppose your lungs, you know, your breathing. That sort of exercise is probably the healthiest, I would imagine. Although it's also good to work on your strength and your, you know, building your muscles, because that can help you do things, and also help to, if you're strong, it means that as you get older and older, you're less likely to maybe fall. You're more able to do tasks and things. And also, of course, there's the kind of cosmetic side. A lot of people work on their muscles and stuff because they want to look pumped and they want to look buff and all the rest of it. So I don't really work out that much. Sometimes we go to the gym and do some cardio stuff, but the rest of the time I just try to kind of build exercise into my daily life, really, by walking as much as possible, by taking the stairs when I have the option, rather than just always using lifts. If I have to go up to the 4th floor, for example, where my son's at creche, that's the daycare centre, his section in the creche is on the 4th floor, and so I'll go up the stairs instead of taking the lift, just to build a bit of exercise into my day, that sort of thing. Question 2. Can you share some tips on how to cut down on unhealthy food in your diet? Can you share some tips on how to cut down on unhealthy food in your diet? How do you cut down on unhealthy food? I think that it's tricky to cut down on stuff, isn't it? Because eating unhealthy food often it feels like a bit of an addiction, right? You just get kind of cravings for certain types of things, like salty food or very sweet things, fried food and stuff like that. suppose for me, the best way to do this is just to think about the effects that those unhealthy foods are having on your body and having on your mind. Because unhealthy food's not just bad for your physical state, it's bad for your mental state. It can make you feel kind of depressed or whatever. If you feel like you're full of grease and sugar and you feel out of shape, it's just not good for your mental health, you know, you feel bad about yourself. So I always just try and think of the benefits of eating healthily, and that helps me to, you know, stay motivated towards eating healthy food. That's part of it. You know, and when you keep that in mind, you start to find very greasy, fatty foods to be a little bit disgusting. You know, because you think this is just bad for me. This is just going to clog up my veins with cholesterol. It's just going to make me put on weight. It's going to make me feel tired after I eat it. You know, and so you think of that. You just project into the future of how you're going to feel after you've eaten it, and think to yourself, well, I don't want to have that. I don't want to create that kind of future for myself. And so I'll avoid that kind of food. It does make it easier. But just, you know, when you're trying to make changes to your lifestyle, sometimes it's just little steps by, you know, it's just step by step. One of the things is to try to avoid eating between meals, try to avoid snacking. And snacking is a bit of a compulsion, you know. If you're at your desk, you're working, it's quite hard to concentrate sometimes, and you just feel like you need something. I don't know what it is, what the psychology is behind it, but we like to take things and put things in our mouths, don't we? Hand to mouth. It's a kind of a compulsion that we have, and it somehow seems to make us feel a little bit better. This action of hand to mouth, that relates to smoking and drinking as well, this hand to mouth thing. But really, you can try to maybe replace the things that you're snacking on with something a bit more healthy, like go for nuts, like unsalted nuts, or like pieces of carrot, or something crunchy. Often a crunchy thing, like a piece of carrot, whatever. That can help. And make sure you drink plenty of water, because often when we think that we're hungry, we're actually thirsty. And if you're properly hydrated, you might not get the cravings that you feel that you're getting. Another thing I've noticed is actually adding peanut butter to my diet. Peanut butter at breakfast time, especially. These days for breakfast I have toast with peanut butter and slices of banana on the top. And we always try to choose peanut butter that doesn't have any palm oil and doesn't have any added salt or sugar. So it's just 100% peanuts. It's a bit more expensive, but you don't even need to put that much on. But the thing is with the peanut butter is that it's rich in protein. Okay, and that means that it means you feel less hungry, right? You feel it staves off hunger for longer. You just don't really feel like you want to snack on something until lunchtime. You just carry on until about 1 o'clock, and you don't feel that hungry, you feel fine. Cup of tea, right? Some water, something like that. If you need to snack on something, maybe just a few nuts, or maybe something crunchy like apple, carrot, cucumber, something like that. Yeah, that's the theory anyway. It can be hard to maintain, but there you go. That's how I try to cut down on unhealthy food in my diet. Question 3, have you ever tried giving up a certain kind of food? What was it and how did you manage it? Giving up a certain type of food. I haven't really had to give up anything for dietary reasons. Like, I don't have any specific health issues that have meant that I've had to give up certain things. But, well, I can give an example of when I used to live in London, when I was single. There used to be a curry place in the street where I lived, and I would regularly get takeaway curries. Right, I get a full like chicken jalfrezi or chicken madras, nice spicy chicken curry with pilau rice. And I would get that sometime. There was a period when I was having that several times a week even, which was frankly too much. And I was putting on weight. I was starting to get a little belly, right? I was starting to get a little bit fat, putting on a bit of fat around my belly, which wasn't great, it didn't make me feel good. And probably made me slightly less attractive to the ladies. And so I decided, right, I need to try and give this up. I need to stop doing this. And again, it was like a concerted effort. I had to decide, I had to make an effort. And I said to myself, right, I can't keep eating curry. This is ridiculous. It's too expensive and it's delicious, but I can't carry on like this. This is no way to live. And so I just made a concerted effort and decided, you kind of have to take a moment and plan what you're going to have for dinner. Like, part of the reason I was ordering curry so much is because I couldn't be bothered to cook, because cooking dinner seemed like a hassle, right? It seemed like a hassle, and I got into the habit of just calling up the curry place and ordering my dinner like that. So I had to say to myself, right, this has got to stop. So I thought, right, here are some recipes I can cook. I just thought about it in advance, thought, right, I can cook these recipes. And so all I need to do is plan in advance, make sure I've got the food in the fridge and in the kitchen, and then I could just cook these things and enjoy it, like put some music on in the kitchen and enjoy cooking and spend time doing that. And as a result, I was able to get into a new habit, like form new habits and eat better. So I didn't have to give up curry exactly, because I could still eat it sometimes, but I did have to kind of change my habits a little bit. How long have I got? I don't have that much, because I've got to be at the museum in good time, so I'm going to have to move on. But I'm just standing in front of the Notre Dame, the Cathedral de Notre Dame, which is like obviously the famous cathedral, and it's covered in scaffolding, completely covered, and there are cranes all around it because they're rebuilding it, because obviously a few years ago it caught fire and it was engulfed in flames. Very dramatic indeed. But they're rebuilding it. Luckily, most of the stone structure of the cathedral was intact, basically. I mean, it was scorched by the flames, but the whole thing didn't collapse. It was just the wooden parts that fell down, including the roof, basically. I think the spire came down. It looks like they've put that back up, but they're working on that. It's an impressive amount of scaffolding, and no doubt an extremely expensive project to put it back together again. I don't know when it's going to be finished. Right, I need to move on here. I only got through the first 3 questions. Okay, I just got a message from Amber. No, a message from Paul. He says he's running late. He's going to be 10 or 15 minutes late. So I'm just going to reply. Okay. Maybe what I can do is record the rest of this later. Maybe walk back this way later on, because I'm going to have to get my skates on here and get to the Cluny Museum in time to meet Amber, because it would be rude of me to make her wait. So I think I'm going to leave the riverside at this point and head over the bridge to the museum. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, it says it's going to take me 18 minutes to walk there. Right, I think I might need to get on a bicycle and do it that way. So I think it's actually time to stop the video, stop this part of the video anyway, and maybe I can carry on with this later on. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to now head up onto the street, go and meet Paul and Amber, record that conversation with them, and then on my way home, do the rest of this. Okay, everyone? All right, I hope you're enjoying this. I hope it's not too noisy. I hope that audio listeners, the sort of the background noises have not been too distracting for you, and that you've been able to hear my voice all right. Video viewers, I hope that the picture has been good, and that this method of kind of attaching the camera to my chest is working. I hope the picture quality's all right. It's not too jerky or anything. We'll see. So am I gonna see Hotel de Ville at this point? When I walk to the top of this ramp, on my left there are these green boxes which are used by these booksellers. These are like little bookshops. And I mentioned on the podcast in a recent episode that there was a lot of people were unhappy that these bookshops are going to have to move because of the opening ceremony. It's all part of the complicated business around the Olympics. So no, I'm not exactly at Hotel de Ville. I think I've gone a bit too far. Hotel de Ville is back there, I think. But anyway, it's time for me to stop recording and go and find Amber and Paul so I don't make them wait. Also, I'd love to get a refreshing drink as well on the way there. All right then. So that is the end of part 1, and I'll speak to you again in part 2. Okay, everybody? Nice one. Boop, there you go. All right, speak to you in a little bit. Okay, bye. Okay, listeners, welcome back. This is part 2. At the end of part 1, I was on a bridge and I was about to go and join up with Amber and Paul, which is what I did, and we recorded an episode at the museum, and that should be available for you fairly soon. It might be the next episode, it might be the one after, I'm not sure. But I didn't finish all of those questions I was going to do, and I said that I would continue afterwards and do more questions, which is the plan now. But I've got a feeling that I won't be able to finish this because the battery on my camera is far too low, and it's probably only going to last 10-15 minutes or something. But in any case, let's see how much we can do outside, and then I'll finish this off back in the pod room later on. Okay, so let's. What I'm going to do now is walk through the streets here, the streets of the first arrondissement, the sort of Châtelet area, and find my way back to the river and walk back along the river, back in the direction of the Louvre Museum again. And who knows, if I can get there in time before the battery runs out, I might be able to show you the Pyramide du Louvre. I think that's the proper name. That big glass pyramid in the main, the sort of the front of the Louvre, the entrance. Okay, so let's see if I can get through some more of those questions that I had earlier. So just bear with me. You're seeing some of the more everyday sights of Paris here, with some of the slightly more grotty back streets, even in an area like this, which is still a very touristy area. Sort of slightly dirty street corners, grotty looking pigeons, some bits of litter. It's not that bad, but there we go. Just in front of me I can see the river, with this impressive looking building in the background, which is the law courts, legal buildings. And look, there's a ramp that will take me down to the embankment, the river embankment. Okay, so let's have a look at this list of questions again. There's no way I'm going to get through all of these now, but I'll do what I can. Okay. So, question 4. What are some effective ways to burn off extra calories without going to the gym? What are some effective ways to burn off extra calories without going to the gym? I was talking about this earlier, really. So, you can try to find little ways to get more exercise into your daily life, I think. It's all about making little choices. For example, choosing to take the stairs when you have the option, choosing to walk rather than taking public transport It depends, of course, it depends where you live and your kind of your living conditions. If you live out in the countryside and you need to drive a car to get anywhere, obviously it's going to be difficult to replace that with walking or cycling. But certainly where I live, instead of taking like the metro or the bus or something, I can try and walk. And in fact, in a lot of cases, it's a bit quicker to walk or to take a bike. And also another way to get more exercise in is to use a traditional bike rather than an e-bike, because using an e-bike, that's basically cheating, isn't it? Because you're not really doing any exercise. I mean, a little bit, but it's not the same as riding a real bike. So just little things like that, just trying to go out of your way to get more exercise into your day. For example, if you go out for lunch, choose to get your food from a place that's a little bit further away and just do an extra bit of walking. If you're going to have a break, why not just go and walk around the block instead of taking a break in your seat? Just little things like that. Question 5. Do you always manage to stick to a healthy eating routine when dining out with friends? Do I stick to a healthy eating routine when I'm dining out with friends? No, I don't. In fact, for some reason, whenever I'm dining out in a restaurant, in that situation I feel like it doesn't really count. And I'll often kind of go, it'll be all right just this once. I'll have ice cream for dessert, or I'll have a cake, or what else could it be? It's all right, I'll have the fish and chips. No, I'll have the chips, it's all right. If I'm in a restaurant, I kind of let myself off and I'm slightly less disciplined in that situation. So I don't really stick to a healthy eating routine when I'm dining out with friends. Number 6. Have you ever experienced a situation where you had to cut back on certain foods for health reasons? Well, the situation I talked about before was a bit similar, where I decided I had to try and eat more healthily because I felt my diet wasn't very good. Because, curry, first of all, a lot of rice, that's a lot of carbohydrate, but they put a lot of butter fat into curry. So, it's not bad. There's a lot of vegetables in curries as well. God, that's noisy, isn't it? It's a noisy city, even here, in a place that should be quieter. There's a man doing exercise on the side here, making me feel guilty for not doing any exercise normally. But anyway, so a time when I've had to cut back on certain foods for health reasons. Well, I had to cut back on curry, but luckily I've never really got to a stage where my health has meant that I've had to cut back on things specifically. I just generally try to keep a balanced diet, which means I, try to cut back on crisps and snacks and things like that. Have you decided to cut anything out completely from your diet? So to just completely cut something out of your diet. Again, I haven't quite got to that stage yet, so I haven't got any kind of outstanding health issues which have meant that I've had to completely cut something out. I don't have diabetes or anything like that. My cholesterol is reasonable, so luckily, no. Number 7, what strategies do you use to fight off cravings for unhealthy foods? So cravings, that's where you just suddenly feel like you want to eat something. Like, I do fancy some crisps. Or, I'd love an ice cream right now. What do I do to fight off cravings? Well, again, I talked about this earlier as well, really. Sort of a question of mind over matter to an extent, where you have to just sort of say to yourself, look, you can't keep snacking on unhealthy foods. It's just, there's no future. There's no future in that. So that tends to work. But otherwise, just try and limit the options I have, which means I try not to have unhealthy foods at home or in my office. And if there's nothing there, then I'm not going to eat it. So just don't buy biscuits, right? Just try and be disciplined and not buy those biscuits when you see them on the shelf of the supermarket. Just have a kind of dedicated, focused mental attitude, or replace unhealthy habits with slightly healthier, similar but slightly healthier ones. For example, snacking on nuts or vegetables, as I said before. But fighting off cravings, sometimes, I don't know, just having some chewing gum at the, on my desk. Because sometimes cravings that you have, it's just like a kind of compulsion. And if you can just grab a chewing gum and start chewing it, that'll do the trick. And then suddenly you don't have cravings for whatever unhealthy thing that you were thinking about before, Number 8, what role do you think is played by genetics on our overall health and well-being? Right, so to what extent are genetics a factor? It's a very big question, isn't it? I think this is one of those big questions in all sorts of things, psychology, in biology, in everything. Nature versus nurture. For example, are we defined by our nature, meaning the genetics, the things we're born with, or are we defined by nurture, the experiences we have over time? And these arguments always break down to nature versus nurture. So, to argue in favour of the idea that genetics play a decisive role in your health and your mental well-being, I would say that a lot of health conditions, including mental health conditions, are inherited from one generation. They're passed down from one generation to another. They are inherited from your parents through your genes. And this is clear. We can see from genetic research, we can see that I've got battery left. We can see that certain health conditions can be passed down from parent to child and so on. So for example, if there's a history of heart disease in your family, a history of certain conditions, and that includes mental conditions too. If there's a history of clinical depression or bipolar disorder in your family, the chances are that you are going to inherit that too. Now, is that in your genes? It seems to be. It seems to be. But maybe it's through the ways in which you behave and the experiences you have, Maybe, someone who's got, let's say your parents have mental health issues, you might also get mental health issues as a consequence of their mental health issues, right? Just through the things they do, the things that happen to you as a child, you might kind of grow up with that pattern in your life too, which leads you to adopt certain ways of thinking or ways of behaving. And you just learn those from your parents, from the things they do. I wonder if this wind is... and we've run out of power. Okay, so video viewers, you're probably now watching a blank screen, I would imagine. Maybe I can continue videoing with my phone. Would that work? But let's see what I can do. I wanted to show you the pyramid in front of the Louvre. Right? I can't promise you something and then not deliver it, can I? So I'll tell you what, I'm going to start videoing on my phone. So I'm now videoing on my phone. Oh, I can't switch it round. Here we go. All right, I'm filming on my phone now, which probably means that the image is not quite as steady as it was before. Audio listeners, you don't care, of course, because you can't see any of these things, so you don't need to worry about it. But I've arrived in front of the Louvre, and here is the famous pyramid. It's a kind of a modern glass structure in front of at the entrance to the Louvre Museum. And so you get these old traditional buildings around the edge, and in the middle the very modern glass pyramid, which is erected over the entrance to the Louvre. When it was first put up, it was very controversial because lots of people completely disagreed with the decision to put up this very modern-looking structure in front of this, otherwise very old-fashioned traditional architecture. People said it ruined the building, ruined the place. I disagree. I think it's great. I think it's a really interesting juxtaposition. And somehow the minimal glass surfaces of this pyramid, I don't know, they seem to highlight the old-fashioned architecture around them, I quite like it personally. I think it's fine. And it's it's see-through. You can see the buildings on the other side. It's bold. It's, it represents the modernization of this place while maintaining the traditional architecture at the same time. So I am fine with it. There you go. I wanted to show that to you. Here we are in the middle of tourist land with the tourist buses around us and stuff. Okay. Right, this is going to be the end of the video part, and I'll continue in the pod room with this list of questions, and we'll wrap this up. Okay, everybody. And we're back. So let's continue. And I'm not actually in my podcasting room. I'm at home because I realised that my computer was here, and so I had to come here. And then I thought, can I be bothered to then go back out again and climb all those stairs to my podcasting room to record the end of this episode? No, I can't be bothered because it's too hot today, and I'm already too hot and sweaty from doing all that walking outside. And so here we are. Right, so what's the plan? To finish off these questions, and I'm going to try and do this quickly. How many times have you heard me say that before? I'm going to try and do this quickly, and then it takes 9 hours. Anyway, this shouldn't take that long. So I was just talking about the part that genetics plays in health issues, right? And I suggested that I'm sure that there's, genetics does play a part, doesn't it? We know that certain conditions can be passed down through the genes, that people can be more susceptible to certain things, more prone to certain diseases and health issues than other people because it runs in the family. I think this is a well-known fact. But also environmental issues play a part as well. So if you have a genetic predisposition to having high cholesterol, for example, then it means that you need to just watch what you eat and take care of your diet and avoid, consuming too much high cholesterol food, right? Because those steps that you take, those environmental aspects can cause can make a difference as well. Okay, so moving on. Question 9. Did the pandemic change your daily routines and affect your health in any way? Well, yes, the pandemic definitely changed my daily routines. Just like everyone, I had to stay in a lot. And there was also the sort of the sense of concern about what was going on in the world. Because, there was this underlying sense that we were in catastrophic times. We didn't know how bad things were going to get, coupled with a sort of beautiful peacefulness, right? It was a weird combination of peaceful, calm, quiet peacefulness and lots of time at home, combined with this sense of doom and gloom about what was going on in the world. So yeah, it affected my daily routines in that way. I think I probably drank a bit too much beer and I ate too many crisps. I let standards slip during the pandemic. It was almost like, because of the conditions, a bit like when I go out for dinner with my friends, I felt like this doesn't really count. You know, these are extraordinary circumstances. So I let things slip and I drank probably more beer and ate more crisps than I normally would. And then I had to put a stop to it. I had to cut that out, or at least cut down on the beer. Yes, but it didn't really affect my mental health too much. It was, other than that strange sense of fear about what was going on in the world, things were fairly stable and normal for me, really. Number 10. Can you share any tips on how to squeeze in forms of exercise during a busy day? I think I've actually talked about that, how to squeeze in exercise into a busy day. Just basically, if you're going to go somewhere for lunch, just walk a bit further. Take a bit of a longer walk to go and get your lunch instead of going to the place that's just at the bottom of your building. If you take a break, instead of just sitting there in front of your computer, go and have a walk around the block. Right? If you have the option to take the stairs, don't do the lazy option and go for the lift, the elevator. Don't take the lift. Go up the stairs. Right? It might hurt, might make your legs ache a bit. You might get out of breath, but ultimately it's good for you. And if you do that every day, it can make a difference. Number 11, how do you deal with stress and does it impact your eating habits? Well, stress can be difficult just like it is for everyone. And stress makes me feel a bit exhausted. And so things like power naps can help. Even just 10 or 15 minutes where I just close my eyes and just try and drift away a little bit, even if I don't get into a sort of a deep sleep of any kind. Just drifting away for just 10, 15 minutes can really help me to kind of calm down, helps me manage my stress. I try to avoid too much caffeine when I'm going through stressful periods because caffeine exacerbates my stress. Try to breathe deeply, try to take time to meditate and stuff, but I sort of deal with stress like most people. I find it a bit hard, of course, but I try to just work through it. Does it impact my eating habits? I think when I'm very stressed, I lose my appetite. So it probably does impact my eating habits a little bit. But I'm normally pretty good with my eating habits. So I will always quite rigidly stick to 3 solid meals a day. So I don't go through those periods. I don't go through periods where I'm not eating properly. I generally, even if I don't have a great appetite, I'll still make sure I eat a fairly decent meal 3 times a day, even if I'm feeling stressed. Number 12, have you ever had to give in to a food craving and then regretted it later? Yes, I have. In fact, just the other day, on Sunday, in fact, I was out with my wife, our kids, a friend of ours, and I just had this sudden craving for a burger. I was like, oh, I'd love to have a burger. And normally in that situation, I'd be like, no, it's all right. We're going to have dinner at home. I won't give in to those cravings. I'll resist. But this particular time, I said, oh, I'd love a burger. You know what I'd love right now? A burger and chips. And my wife just said, yeah, you can if you like. I was like, wow, permission. I'll go for it. And so we went to a place just around the corner from where we were. And I got this big greasy burger, some fries. It was actually a pretty good one. And it was kind of good at the time, but then as I continued eating it, I think burgers are actually overrated. I will say they're quite overrated. They seem good on paper, you know, the idea of a burger, when you see a picture of one, the idea of one is good, but then when you actually eat one, they're never quite as good as they should be. In fact, they're normally quite messy. They fall apart as you eat them. Your fingers get all sticky. It's quite disgusting. And then when you've finished eating it, you just feel a bit disgusted and full of regret. So yeah, I had to give in to cravings I was having for a burger, and then I regretted it almost instantly when I felt all full and all kind of, I felt too full I felt all lethargic and sleepy afterwards. And I felt a little bit disgusted, and I felt a little bit guilty that I'd eaten this unhealthy thing. And I felt a little bit disgusted with myself. And I felt sleepy as well. I don't know what it is. Is it like fatty food and carbohydrates? It sort of there's probably a lot of sugar as well, right? There's sugar in the sauce. There's sugar in the bread as well. And you probably get a bit of a sugar rush, but then you crash fairly soon afterwards. So I crashed like maybe an hour or two afterwards, and I felt very drowsy. I was like, I just really want to sleep. So I definitely regretted having the burger. If I'd resisted, if I hadn't given in, I probably would have been in a better state for the rest of that day. Number 13, do you have a pet? Does it help you to reduce your stress levels or just make them worse? So they say that having a pet can be good for your stress levels, right? Like stroking a cat, stroking a dog can be very therapeutic, apparently. But no, we don't have a pet, mainly because we can't really have one. The apartment is too small. We considered having a cat a while ago when we lived in a different apartment that was up on the sort of right on the top floor, and there were windows that looked out on some rooftops, and we were concerned first of all that the cat would escape out of the window and disappear over the rooftops of Paris, like a Paris cat from a Disney cartoon or something. But also, we were concerned about two other things, and these are probably still the reasons why we don't have a cat. So the first thing is that the apartment is too small. Where would we put the litter tray? So the litter tray is the thing that the cat does its poo in. It's kind of a tray with what's called cat litter in it. It's a kind of a gravelly stuff. It's a sort of like a dusty gravel type stuff, and the cat sits on there and does their poo in there. They kind of scrape a little hole in it, they squat down, they do their poo, and then they kind of kick and scrape the dirt back over the poo, or at least that's the idea. In reality, they just kick half of it onto the floor, and then you've got this disgusting sort of dirty tray of cat poo somewhere in your house. And if we lived in a big house and we had a sort of an appropriate room, a sort of a porch or some other back room leading into the garden, you could imagine that would be an appropriate place to put a cat litter tray. Or if we had a house that was actually on the ground floor, we'd have a cat flap so the cat could come in and out, whenever it wanted to. But we don't have that. So we don't want a litter tray in the apartment somewhere. It would smell, it would be disgusting. The place is too small for that. And also, we were just concerned about going on holiday and stuff, because, in the summer we'll go away for a few weeks at a time. And we can't even keep houseplants alive. When we go away on holiday, we come back and half of our plants have died because they haven't been watered. So if we can't keep plants alive, how would it be with an actual living animal? Obviously, we'd have to ask a neighbour to come and feed the cat, but it seems to be more problematic, more complicated than it's worth. So no pet. But, one day, maybe when we have the right circumstances, we might get a cat, because I love cats. I'm more of a cat person than a dog person. I like the way cats are. They're kind of, I find them very cute. I like the fact that they're a bit independent, because they just go off and do their own thing, and they come back when they want to be fed, or they come back when they want to be stroked or to fall asleep on your computer or something like that. I don't mind that. I find a dog to be a little bit too much of a responsibility. It's too needy. It has to be walked all the time. Whereas cats are more like, yeah, just leave me alone for a while, which is fine for me. So I'm more of a cat person. But I could imagine one day if I lived in a house in the countryside and there was lots of land around and I had lots of free time, then maybe I could imagine getting a dog. But no pets now, and no pets for the foreseeable future. So I just have to make do with my children, who are kind of like, the closest thing that I can get. Like, for a lot of people, having pets is like the next best thing to having kids. For me, having kids is the next best thing to having pets. Number 14, do you manage to get enough sleep? Do you have any tips for getting a good night's sleep? How do you wind down before bedtime to promote a good night's sleep. So I never get enough sleep. First of all, I always want to go to bed before midnight, and I almost never go to bed before midnight. I think that time that you spend sleeping before midnight counts as double. So if you go to bed at 11:30, that half an hour between, if you fall asleep then, that half an hour between 11:30 and 12 counts as an hour. So any time you sleep before midnight, in my book, counts as double, right? So I always want to sleep before midnight, but I always end up going to bed afterwards because, like getting the kids to sleep in the evening, getting my daughter to sleep, after all that faffing around, eventually the kids are asleep, and then I've got to clean up the kitchen or whatever. And normally I only get sort of like 90 minutes of an evening to do stuff that I want to do or that I want to do with my wife, watch a TV series or just talk about something. Somehow it's just ends up being like an hour and a half or something, and then it's time to go to bed. And with a baby, you have to kind of prepare yourself as well a little bit before you go to bed. You've got to make sure that you've got a measure of water and a measure of milk to be prepared when the baby wakes up in the morning and wants to be fed. You've got to just get everything ready. We've got blinds. If it's the weekend, we lower the blinds before we go to bed so that it's fairly dark in the morning so that everyone stays asleep, because if the apartment is too bright, the kids wake up too early. So in the evening, I might think, right, it's time to go to bed now. It's 11:30, and then I realise I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to iron a shirt for work tomorrow, I've got to do this, and I've got to reply to that email which I forgot to reply to, and then before you know it, it's 12:30, and you get to bed, and then you need to have a conversation. My wife and I have to have a conversation about something, and then it's 1:00 before I actually fall asleep. And then, of course, my son wakes up at 5:00 in the morning and needs to be changed and needs to be fed his milk. So we both end up waking up because of that. And then it takes us another half an hour to get him back to sleep. And then in half an hour after that, you've got to wake up and get the kids ready for school and all that stuff. So I never get the amount of sleep I want to get. But even before the kids arrived, sometimes I wouldn't get enough sleep. And certainly going, like the routine that you have before you go to bed. So whether you've got kids or not, like, especially if you don't have kids, people still have a lot of trouble sleeping. People who don't have kids still have a lot of trouble sleeping, which is what used to happen to me sometimes. And the routine that you have before you go to bed can make a big difference, right? Getting to sleep in the evening. So tips for getting a good night's sleep. How do you wind down before bedtime to promote a good night's sleep? I've heard that you've got to keep screen time to a minimum in the evening, because all of that light going into your eyes is sort of stimulating, and it doesn't help you to switch off. It doesn't help to create certain certain processes or certain rhythms in your body, rhythms which help you to go to sleep more easily. A lot of it's related to light and our exposure to light, which I suppose goes back to the days before we had electricity, and traditionally we would sleep when it was dark and we'd be awake when it was light. So if you to try to get a good night's sleep, to try and get to sleep when you go to bed without lying there for ages, dim the lights in the evening. Try to create a low light atmosphere. Try not to look at screens for like an hour before you go to bed, right? I find that dimming the lights a bit, trying to stay relaxed, changing into some more relaxed clothes, and reading a book, or just simply closing my eyes and listening to music, something like that. That can really help. Trying to avoid caffeinated drinks in the afternoon and the evening. So trying to avoid coffee during the day, because even if you drink coffee in the middle of the afternoon, the caffeine can still affect you in the evening or at bedtime. What else? Eating. So trying not to eat too late, because if you've got a full stomach, that can cause your body to stay awake. So I think things like that. Number 15, have you ever tried cutting back on caffeine intake to improve your sleep quality? Yes, I've tried cutting back on caffeine, cutting down on caffeine. And it sort of depends. Some periods I find that I can drink coffee even in the evening and still get a perfectly good night's sleep. But then at other times, not. So it's a bit weird. It sort of depends on... I don't know what the factors are. Just sometimes I just know I'm going to get a good night's sleep, so I can drink coffee at any time. And then at other times, I can just feel that I'm sensitive to caffeine during that period, so I'll avoid. Generally speaking, I try to avoid drinking coffee after about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I'm okay. I can pretty much drink tea, even like black tea, in the evening and still sleep. But I do try to cut back on caffeine intake in the afternoon. 16. How do you balance out work responsibilities with personal activities for a higher work-life balance? I find that quite difficult, getting the work-life balance right, to balance out work things and personal things, because actually most of my work these days is a sort of a mix, in a way, between personal and work-related stuff. You know, doing this podcast, it's a very personal project, and it's all done, I set my own schedule, more or less. And so balancing those two things out is a bit tricky. And what I have to do sometimes is, on a day when normally I'd be doing podcasting work, I have to actually sometimes tell myself, no, you're going to take the day off today because you're stressed and overworked and tired, and you need to give your voice a break. So you're going to take the day off today and you're going to do something else. You're just going to play the guitar or go for a walk or even go to the cinema during the day. So it can be difficult for me to balance out work responsibilities and personal things, because sometimes it's kind of all the same thing, you know. So I just have to I just have to listen to my body in a way. For example, if I'm feeling very tired, if I'm feeling maybe frustrated or something, I just have to be the one to decide to take a break in order to kind of refresh myself. 17. Living in Paris, do you often manage to get outside and into nature very often? No, not as much as I would want, because Paris is obviously a very urban, very built-up area, as you saw in this video if you watched it. But you'll just know, of course, that it's an extremely built-up area, and there aren't many real sort of natural spots. There are some parks where there's grass and trees and flowers and things, but no true nature where you can just be completely away from civilization and other people. So I don't get that nearly as much as I would like to. And there are some times when I'm feeling stressed out that I just look out the window and I can't really even bear to see all these buildings and hear the sounds of cars and the sounds of people outside. I just would love to escape into the countryside, into nature, which I find so much more peaceful and relaxing. So when as a family, when we do get outside, sometimes we'll take a weekend in the countryside somewhere. We'll just stay in some place in the countryside. I really make the most of those times and just really enjoy, being outside, in nature, seeing the trees, the listening to the birds, trying to do some bird watching, which is a very peaceful thing to do, where you go out to a natural spot and you try and spot different species of birds, and looking for wildlife is lovely. So I don't manage to do that as much as I would like to. Number 18, have you ever considered going vegan? I've considered going vegan, and I probably should go vegan because I think it's probably a healthy thing to do, and also it's good for the environment as well, right? Because livestock, that's like animals that we eat, like cows and sheep and pigs. I mean, even if that's arguably unethical to do that to animals, but also just keeping livestock is very bad for the planet, for lots of different reasons. I mean, bad for the planet meaning bad for the environment. It's sort of a lot of greenhouse gases are associated with the keeping of livestock. So there's lots of reasons to go vegan, but I haven't done it because I don't know really. I feel like I need to be prepared for that. I need to work out exactly what I would cook. I need to learn a whole new bunch of recipes, and Also, I just like milk in my tea. I know you can put like almond milk and oat milk and things in instead, but it's difficult. I do like a fried egg on toast. So maybe one day. I'm not quite ready for it yet. But I do eat vegan food quite a lot. There's a place near where I live that does vegan food, and I go there for lunch quite regularly. But I'm not full vegan by any means, not yet. I'm not ready to make that commitment just yet. Number 19, do you do any brain training exercises or puzzles to keep your mind sharp? How do you fit them into your daily routine? I go through phases of doing Sudoku. Sometimes I'll just get into doing Sudoku, which is, I think, a good thing to do. It really focuses your mind. It's quite meditative in the sense that you focus all your attention on this puzzle, and it sort of helps you to block out the rest of the world. And training like that, I mean, doing some sort of specific mental task like that, I think is probably quite good. It's good to help you to, develop focus, helps you to keep your mind focused and stuff. So I'll do Sudoku sometimes. I'm not very good at it though, but yeah, I've got like a book of Sudoku puzzles here, and every now and then I'll just decide, right, I'm just going to do some Sudoku. Maybe I'll do that this evening. I'd love to do that this evening, actually, but I think I've got to edit. I've got to edit this episode because I've got lots of episodes to publish over the next few weeks. Number 20, how is your screen time? Do you think you have to cut down on screen time before bedtime to improve sleep quality? My screen time, I don't know what the average screen time is these days for most people. I think my screen time is not great. It's not that great, to be honest. I think I probably look at screens a little bit too much, partly because of the work I do, because a lot of the time I'm in front of a computer editing or writing or publishing podcast episodes, also just I watch YouTube. I just watch videos on YouTube quite a lot, on my phone, on my laptop. So, my screen time is not as good as it could be. I could always cut it down in the evenings. As I said before, I think it's healthier and probably helps you to sleep better if you don't look at your screen in the evening. But I have to make conscious choices to do that. I have to say to myself, right, no laptop, no editing work, no YouTube this evening. I'm just going to put all my devices away and just open a Sherlock Holmes book, or I'm going to, open a book, or I'm going to do some Sudoku or something like that. So, yeah, I think we all have to cut down on screen time in our lives, and certainly before bedtime. I think it's probably a good idea. Am I going to do it? Who knows? I should. Okay, talking of cutting down on screen time, that's pretty much the end of this episode. Okay, thank you very much for joining me. I hope that this was a good one. I haven't reviewed the footage that I shot outside earlier on when I was walking around, so I don't know what it looks like, what it sounds like. Hopefully it's going to be good, but you can let me know in the comments section as usual. And so what about all those phrasal verbs? Now, I'm not going to go into all the details now. I'm not going to teach them to you now and give you all the other examples and definitions now. That's going to come in a premium episode very soon. Maybe the next premium episode series will be dealing with all these phrasal verbs and some other bits of vocab from this episode. But let me just repeat some of them. So, to work out in the gym, to cut down on unhealthy food. We also had to cut back on unhealthy food as well. To give something up, for example, to give up certain types of food, to give up coffee, for example, to burn off calories, right? So do some exercise in the gym in order to burn off calories, to stick to a routine or to stick to a diet, to cut back on, there it is again, to cut something out, right? To cut something out from your diet, to fight off cravings for something, to squeeze in exercise, or to squeeze exercise into your day, to deal with stress, to give in to a food craving, to give in to temptation, to wind down in the evening before bed, to balance things out, to balance out work responsibilities and personal activities, to fit something into your daily routine. And yes, again, to cut down on something. So there you go, a few different phrasal verbs. I will clarify, explain, define those things in a premium episode soon. Plus, there'll be the usual memory exercises and pronunciation practice for that as well. But that's it for this episode. Leave your comments in the comments section. If you got this far, let me know something about screen time, because that was the last thing I talked about. Okay, screen, something about the word screen. You can use the word screen in your comment to show that you got to the end of the episode. But in any case, leave me your comments. What did you think? How was this episode for you? What did you notice? Did you notice anything in particular in terms of language? Did you notice any words or phrases? And did you, if you watched the video version, did you notice any things? Did you notice anything that I walked past on my walk near the river today? Okay, that's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'll speak to you next time. But for now, it's time to say goodbye. Bye. 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 Bye.